Good day and welcome to our explanation as to why the Samsung S22 is really the only replacement for the Samsung S9. So to be brief, the Samsung, and by the way, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be migrating my old phone, which is what you're watching right now, the S9, to my new S22 as I'm explaining this. So this is a brand new phone. It hasn't been used. Haven't done anything with it. Just cracked the seal so I can make this easier. So let me pop the SIM card in first, and I'll get this little thing started because it does take a while. One of the things you notice here is that the SIM goes in, well, what I would define as upside down, but that's only because I'm used to branding and not used to having the tech out, as it were, right? So you leave the tech side out, the chip side out, and you can tell because there's that little corner there. Anyway, doesn't make any difference. Okay, let's pop this back in, or pop this in, I should say. Boom. And get rid of my pin, and then we'll just power it up, and I'll explain why this is the only upgrade that's really going to work for anybody that wants a Samsung S9. So the S9 is, pretty much everybody knows, is probably the best phone ever made until, well, it still might be. It's just a great product. So let's go through a couple of things. In particular, why am I upgrading that phone, the one you're watching right now, to that phone? Well, mostly because I don't have a choice. What's happened is I work with security, and I need to have something that's supported, and the S9, or the one you're watching right now, is not. And that's not good. What that means is I'm stuck on Android 10 on that device, and this one I can get Android 12. The primary reason why the S22 is the only device that you can change from the S9 happily from is based on size. Samsung and virtually everybody else have come up with these monster phones these days. So I had tried a Samsung S10, wasn't a better product. Tried a Samsung S20 Fan Edition, great big screen, too hard. Anyway, the 21, same thing. And in fact, what they've done is they've reduced screen resolution on all of these newer phones. So let's go through some of the numbers and explain what's going on. So the S22, this one, runs Android 12 and will no doubt run Android 13 and 14, which means I can get this running for another 5 years probably. Now, here's a question people ask is, well, why didn't you just go to why didn't you just put up with the bigger screen and go to a Samsung S20 Fan Edition or something like that? Like, let's just ignore that the screen size is the #1 reason. Well, the reason for that is I don't want to change my phones all the time. It's a pain to do. More importantly, it's expensive. And if I buy a S20 Fan Edition or something like that, it will be unsupported, 2 years earlier than this one. So what I did is I bought this one, and you might ask what I paid for it, so I'll tell you. These cost about $1,100 Canadian. You can get them on sale for about $1,000 usually. I've even seen some in the 900 and change range, 910, 920, depending on the sale that's going on. I ended up buying this from somebody who got it as an upgrade for free, but really wanted the money, and I paid exactly $700 for it. So $700 is pretty reasonable. Plus, I'll sell my S9 for, I don't know, $100 to $200. So my net cost is $500. I can totally live with that. Okay, I'm not going to go over the actual dimensions because you can look these up, and it really doesn't, the numbers are kind of irrelevant. Let me explain what the differences are. This is a millimeter smaller as far as the height goes, and it is a millimeter thinner as far as the thickness goes. Even better. As far as weight goes, this is the old one is 163 grams, the S9, and the new one's 167, so it's just a few grams heavier. I don't care. The beauty of this is that because they've made this bullet hole, as it's called, for the camera, they have now stretched the screen out, so the screen is technically larger. This is technically a 6.1-inch screen, and the one that I'm using to record, the Samsung S9, is a 5.8-inch screen. Now, they've really made some crappy changes here. Well, I shouldn't say crappy. They've removed features that people aren't using. So let's go over that while I'm clicking through this. I do want to copy everything from my old phone. So I'm going to say yes. Okay, I'm switching from an old Galaxy. Yes, I read the license agreement very carefully. I'm going to do this on wireless. And now I have to get my old phone and get Smart Switch running on it. If you're not familiar with that, it's just their free tool to migrate. So if it's not already on your phone, and it almost certainly is. Okay, so all I did is start Smart Switch on the other phone, the one you're looking at, and I also I clicked agree. That's about it. So let's just click next. And yeah, I want everything. I want all 62,000 messages. And I'll click transfer, and this is going to take a while. There, I had a bit of security to do. On my old phone, we're just asked for my code. There, I'll enter my Samsung account information. No, I don't want Telesmart Home. That's just for my carrier. No, I don't want that. And I'll click finish, and it'll start transferring. Okay, so the number one difference that's on here that's really a reduction over what we had before, and I'll explain in a minute why you probably don't care about it, but let me explain what it is the resolution. So for those of you who are not technical, okay, I'll round the numbers here for you, but the number of dots on a Samsung S22 is 2300. It's 2340 actually. We have 2300 dots. On your Samsung S9, it's almost 3000, 2960. And there's a similar reduction in the width here. So this has about 1080, so call it 1100. And the one you're working on is 1440, so the Samsung S9. So it's really quite a reduction. Now, that being said, do you care? And the answer is no. It's a bit frustrating to see screen resolution go down, but Apple really started drilling on that about a decade ago with their high-resolution screens, which, by the way, Samsung made for them. So Samsung was the manufacturer, in case you weren't aware of that. Samsung was making virtually all, I think still is, making virtually all of the screens for Apple's. Anyway, so there was a competition, right, to get to the highest number of pixels because it looked good for marketing. But you can see everything here is perfectly round. You can't see any dots. It's very nice. Okay, another thing. One of the things that I'm very disappointed in with the S22 is that the sound quality isn't any better. I bike with this, and I don't like to have earbuds in, so I want to have the speaker volume to be really loud, and it's no better on this than it was on the S9. So that's not good. Another drawback, your S9 has an SD card. This does not. You can't add memory to it. Now, it's not a big deal because the minimum amount of memory you can get in here is 128 gig. That's a lot of memory, so I wouldn't be too worried about it. Another drawback, they removed the headphone jack out of this, and you think, wow, I really want a headphone jack. Well, you're going to need to get over it because nobody has them. In fact, with the European requirement to go to a standardized jack at the bottom here, my guess is that Apple will get around that by just not having a jack at all, that everything is going wireless. That's just the way I see that going in a few years. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think. They're going to get rid of all of these connectors at the bottom here. A couple other things that have been removed: the heart rate monitor and the blood oxygen monitor don't exist on here when they do exist on your S9. I'm one of the few people that use them. You probably don't. You probably don't care. Now, what's better about it? Bigger battery. So the battery is about 20% larger, and the result is that you get about 85 hours, well, it's rated for 85 hours of battery life versus 78 hours on your old one. Now, of course, your old one, the Samsung S9, or my old one anyway, the battery, of course, is worn down a bit, so it will actually have a much bigger improvement for me. The really big improvements, though, here are in the camera. Now, the S9 had really, really nice cameras. I guess cameras front and back. So that one, the S9, has an 8 megapixel selfie cam, front cam. This has a 10. Okay, fine. But the back camera, look at this. So this has 3 cameras in it, 3 lenses, and this is a 50 megapixel camera. That is a 12. By the way, 12 is more than what you need. But what is nice are these other 2 lenses. You got a telephoto and an ultra wide, and it really does make some difference to the quality. So do I care about it? Not particularly, but I do take a lot of photos and record a lot of videos, and it is nice to have. Another nice thing, this has Wi-Fi 6, which will let you connect, well, look, I'm going to avoid the tech talk here. This will connect to more things in the future than the Wi-Fi 5 will. It's just better. Much along the same lines as the Bluetooth. This has Bluetooth 5.2, whereas the Samsung S9 has Bluetooth 5. Nothing wrong with Bluetooth 5. One of the big advantages to 5.2 is the amount of electricity, the amount of juice that gets used for transferring to things like headphones and whatever. Now, they made huge improvements between the 4 series and the 5 series of Bluetooth, but the 5.2 is just better again, just better pairing capabilities. One thing you probably will care about, because it still does have a USB port on the bottom, is that this has USB 3.2. And you might be confused with USB-C, USB-A, so on and so forth. Ignore the letters. 3.2 is the latest standard that's practically everywhere now, and that operates at twice the speed, which means you can transfer your photos and other things on and off of this device at twice the speed of USB 3.1. So this will transfer, I believe it's at 20 gig per second, and Samsung S9 has USB 3.1, and it transfers at, I believe it's 10 meg per second. So megabit, by the way, not megabyte. So it's a pretty big improvement. A couple of other things are the actual CPU and the GPU. So basically the horsepower, the machinery behind this it's still an octa-core, it just means 8 cores. But the difference is they've added 3 different types of cores into this unit, whereas your unit, the Samsung S9, has only 2 different types of chips in it. And you might think, well, who really cares? Yeah, it's hair splitting, but it means that basically the S22 will match what your task is better than the S9 does, and will have better battery life. The video. So this has an Adreno 730, and the Samsung S9 has an Adreno 630. And what's the difference? Look, it's just better. Is it radical? No. Can you play way better games on this? Sure. Do most people care? Not really. Cell phone games are not known for being crazy high-end, but it is substantially better. It is nice. One thing I should have mentioned about the cameras, and again, this is hair splitting, but some of you might actually care about it. S22 is capable of 8K resolution, and if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. We're going to skip it. But it's only at 24 frames a second, which is theater quality. DVDs are 30 frames per second. High frame rates are 60 to 120 or even higher frame rates. And you might ask, well, why would I care about frame rate? Well, that's the number of pictures that get shown per second, because a movie is just a series of pictures. And what that means is you get a lot of motion blur when you move. So this is capable of 8K, but you're not going to want to use it for anything but, well, like we're doing here, where the camera's on a mount and it's not moving much, because if you do, you'll get motion blur. The S9 is only capable of 4K, but at least it can do it at 30 frames a second, which is at least DVD quality. So that's a good thing. All right, so you're going to need to get wireless buds for this, Bluetooth buds. And the only other accessory you're going to need to buy is in this package, which is a thermal plastic unit. Well, you can get any case you want, but for God's sakes, buy a case. Don't be one of these people that has a phone without a case on it. It's gonna break. This is Corning Victus Plus glass, and it's supposed to be 2.5 times better at avoiding cracks and scratches than the Corning Gorilla Glass 5 that was in the S9. It's still gonna drop, and you are gonna drop it. So there's another good reason to do this, which is, see this bump? This bump is here because these cameras are actually movable. So you can see that that bump right there, right? So the lenses actually move up and down. And because of that, there's this squidgy bump, which is quite obnoxious. If you get a case like this one, I think this was like $8 Canadian on our friend Amazon. You can get them anywhere. It's one of the nice things about having a Samsung is they're so popular, you can get accessories and parts for them everywhere. So now what you're looking for in a case is most likely what you want is a TPU case, a thermal plastic unit. That's these. It's these soft, they're plastic, but they feel kind of rubbery. And what they do is they provide impact resistance. So let me explain a couple of other things here. Around this aluminum frame, you'll notice there's a few little joints here, and those are just like joints in a bridge. So a bridge on a road, yes, I'm talking about a road, completely different topic here. When it goes from tarmac to bridge deck, the deck is often cement or it has cement under it, so it expands and contracts at different speeds. So what they do is they put these little rubber expansion joints in so that there's not a gap in the bridge when it gets really hot or really cold out. It's the same thing with this. See these little expansion joints? They're there so when this drops, and because it is going to drop, when it drops, it isn't going to get smashed. Okay, now here's the problem. as I said, you are going to drop it, and it is going to be a problem. So for God's sakes, go buy yourself a case. And look what happens when you do that. Now that bump is protected. It doesn't bother me. And when I flip it over now, it doesn't scratch the lenses. Another reason to buy one of these thin thermoplastic unit cases or covers is wireless charging. If you're like me and you want a wireless charge, which pretty much everybody does these days, and I have since the S6 days. Well, if you're using a really thick, heavy case or one you 3D printed yourself, probably not going to charge very well or not charge at all. You can see, boom, that's just charging. Very nice, huh? So in summary, the reason to change isn't because you need a new phone, it's because your old one, in this case the S9, isn't going to work anymore. It's not going to have the upgrades that provide the security that you need. And if you're going to change, the S22 is the only real competitor out there that's similar. There's a number of things that are worse off, but there's a whole lot of things that are better. So the S9 is really your friend. Hey, we'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a comment below. If you'd click like, super appreciated. Subscribe, even more appreciated. And you can always get a hold of us at www.urtech.ca. That's www.urtech.ca. Thanks and have a great day. Bye-bye.